Good evening, Vista family. Thanks for tuning in tonight to our Q&A. This marks the third one we've done. We started off in June and July, and we kind of let August go past with the start of school, and now we're jumping back into September. If this is useful, then we'll keep on doing it. And if it's not useful, then you can let me know and we'll stop. But I figured one thing that Vista could always try and do is provide as much information to you as possible and just inform you the best we can of all the things that are going on. And so we'll start right in. I did get a number of questions in advance, like always. I will read through those questions and do my best to answer them. Also, there's the opportunity to chat in the inbox, and I'll try and answer those questions that come through the chat as well. At the end, when this is finished, I'll have these posted to the website so you can read the answers if something doesn't seem clear. And then, as always, you can send me an email directly at sgibbs@vistautah.com, and I will try to answer you as quickly as I can. So thank you, everyone, for this. First question that came in was, is there an option for students who are doing distance learning to do partial online and partial printed packets? The concern was that students are maybe spending a little bit too much time in front of the screen. And so right now, there is not an option to do partially online and partially packets while you're doing distance learning. The distance learning curriculum that we purchased for families was vetted for quality and for rigor, and it's all online. Now, parents concerned with screen time are welcome to print some of the work on their home printers, and they can do the actual work offline on paper. But once you've completed that work, your students will have to input it when they get online and enter the work to complete it. That way their distance teachers can view it and run it through things. So there's not just a packet exchange type option currently. You can do some work on paper if you print it and do it offline, but when you're entering your answers and doing those things, you'll have to do that online. Plus, many of the online pieces have tutorials, videos that you watch. They're interactive to a degree, and so you can't do tutorials through packets. So we do apologize for that. I understand the screen concern, but at the same time, we feel like the program has the rigor and the challenge. It's a tough program, and it requires quite a bit of work and thinking and logic, and so it is done primarily online rather than in print form. The next question that came in asked the question, does Vista offer the option for families that are homeschooling that allows students to come to Vista and take electives only on campus? And so if I just want to reframe that, we have Vista students who are doing distance learning and who are doing hybrid learning and then who are doing in-person learning. I believe this question is about people who aren't currently Vista students. They want to know if they can do that hybrid option like our hybrid students are right now. And so I would give a qualified yes. Specifically, Vista only allows this in limited cases. Vista has a cap set by the state each year as to the number of students that we can educate, the maximum number of students that we can enroll and educate. This year we are at about 1,000 students, and that is our cap. If we are under enrolled, or if we come in below our cap by the state, we can then allow homeschool students to come in and work in a hybrid situation and access some of the classes. If we are at the cap, which is fully enrolled or above that, slightly above that, students that are full-time Vista students take priority, and they get access to that coursework, and we can't bring in students who aren't registered. This year, Vista purchased a distance curriculum online that allows students to be a hybrid, to be at home part of the time and be on campus part of the time. What I would encourage homeschool families to do that really want access to some of Vista coursework is to enroll at Vista and use the online curriculum that we purchased for our distance learners. That actually makes you a full-time Vista student, even though you're not on campus. But if you're not using the curriculum that makes you a full-time Vista student, that makes you a homeschool student. And so we can only do that if we have spots available below our cap. And so the best thing to do is to get on the waiting list and to put your name in, come through the lottery and get yourself secured a spot, and then we can look at scheduling from that point on and figure out how best to manage your individual situation. So yes, there is an opportunity for some homeschool students, but it's limited. What I will say with that, though, is our after-school program is still also very strong. And so that's open to any student or any person throughout the community. So even if a homeschool family felt really strongly that they didn't want to do our distance learning curriculum, they could still sign up for the dance classes that are taught in our after-school program, our strings programs that are taught in the after-school program. There's some band and some music and some visual arts, as well as some technology. Our after-school program does allow for any person in the community to become involved. Matter of fact, we have a partnership with 4-H that allows any student to come and participate in those after-school programs through 4-H. And so if you have interest in a program, contact us, reach out, and we'll see if we can get you connected through your homeschool network. The next question came about a coronavirus update. There were actually several questions in this area. Parents want to know where Vista stands with regards to coronavirus and cases and things like that. And so I'll kind of walk you through it. As of today, Vista has had 0 student cases so far this school year, and we have had 0 staff cases this school year. We've been really blessed in that aspect. Now, that's not to say that no one has had the virus. We had several staff members that had the virus during the school closure between March and July. And we had several students that had it during that time. But since school opened in August, we've had 0 student cases and 0 staff cases. We're at 0 right across the board. We also have had 0 State Board of Health mandated quarantine. And what that means is if someone was exposed to the coronavirus or exposed to a person with the coronavirus, and that exposure would have taken place on school campus, anyone who was exposed to the virus would be mandated by the State Board of Health to a 14-day quarantine. So we've had none of those either. Now, what we have had is there have been some cases where a family member of a student, a mom or a dad, or a relative or someone who's not a Vista student has contracted COVID elsewhere, and they have gone on self-quarantine, but there's been no transfer of that case into the school. And so maybe dad got it at work, and so the whole family is quarantining, and so the child's never been in school during quarantine times, or older brother got it at the high school where they attend, and the whole family went on quarantine. So there have been a few families like that, but 0 cases so far in our building of the actual COVID-19 or of health board mandated quarantines. Some parents have asked how they can be made aware of Vista status or check the number of cases and quarantines. There's obviously the state website, coronavirus at utah.gov, but also I'm willing to do a little update in the newsletter if parents would like that. I'm happy just to have kind of a little coronavirus update. We used to do weekly updates on the school webpage as well, and so I'm willing to do a list of cases and things like that in the weekly newsletter and attach that to the website as well. But so you can go to the Utah site, or I'll try and add some things to the Vista site so you know. But right now we're at 0-0, and we're hoping to stay that way. We've been very blessed. I want to thank parents and students for being willing to go along with the guidelines that were given us by the local Board of Health and by the state school board. We've done our best to comply with those. both at lunch and at recess and throughout the day, and things have gone very, very well. As those guidelines change, they do tend to change every few weeks, and they give updates. We will also adapt our processes to meet the guidelines. One question people asked is, when a vaccine becomes available, will the school require students to be vaccinated in order to attend? We will not. Just like all the other vaccinations, students can have them or they cannot have them. They can be exempt through an exemption process and choose not to take the vaccine. We won't interfere there. So that's an update on COVID. The next question that came in is for hybrid students or distance learning students. Sorry, I have a little bit of itchy nose today. Will hybrid students or distance learning students be allowed to participate in the major school events? And this question said, for example, the Halloween parade. And the answer is, in general, yes. The plan is to allow students, all students, to participate in major events wherever possible. For example, any auditioned event, the musical, the student talent show, things like that. Hybrid and distance learning students are welcome to participate in those and audition for those. They can sign up through the website, they can come on campus and audition, they can work out their practice schedules, all those things. In addition, any school-based event, students are allowed to participate in. And I mean, for example, our Halloween dance for our junior high age students, the 7th, 8th, and 9th graders, the daddy-daughter dance or the mother-son celebration, and the Halloween costume parade. Those are all things that any student can participate in, distance learning and hybrid alike. The only events where we might have a little bit of difficulty is where there's not a mechanism to participate in things, because typically how we schedule these events is through some type of homeroom. Like, well, you might be able to do the Halloween parade. We probably don't have you scheduled to attend a specific classroom's Halloween party. There's just not a mechanism for keeping track of that child, and we don't have a separate distance homeroom Halloween party. You probably wouldn't feel as comfortable just going to a random class because you don't have friends or assignments in that. So things where you would be expected to be part of your homeroom, if you don't have a homeroom, obviously we probably won't have you participate. And so that the Halloween parties, Valentine parties, those are some examples where we might not participate. I mean, for Valentine's, bringing a Valentine for every classmate and you don't know them and they don't know you doesn't make a lot of sense. And so in those specific elements, we probably won't have you participate, but everything school-wide that doesn't require you to be tied to a homeroom, you're welcome to participate, and we actually want you to participate. Next question, can my students switch to hybrid at any time during the school year? And this is a little bit different than switching back to totally in person. Let me talk a little bit about that and why we have things set up. If you're currently hybrid or distance learning, we have windows where you can return to in-person learning, and those are at the quarter breaks. Part of that is logistical. We need to make sure we get a schedule for each child. We need to make sure that we have enough seats and desks and cleaning materials and masks, etc., for every child, so we can't just invite you back any Monday of the year. Also, we want to look at equity and grading and progress. If you were distance learning for 8 weeks and came back the last 2 weeks of school, how do we grade you? There might only be one assignment. And so if you aced it, you got an A. And if you didn't, then you would get a D or an F or things like that. So it's very hard to do things equitably when I'm bringing you back in at various times. And so we establish these windows where we can manage that process for you. However, going the other direction, if you're in person now and you want to move to hybrid, it is possible to move to hybrid at any time during the school year, because you would be moving into a different program and your enrollment and your grades would kind of start over. But there's one qualifying factor. There has to be a seat license available for you. For example, at the start of the year, when we purchased our distance curriculum, we purchased this from a company. We purchased a certain number of seats and seat licenses for our school. We purchased a few extra, and so we wanted to make sure that there was enough for everyone at the start of the year. And we do have a few extra seats sitting out there available. And so if you're in 6th grade and are fully in person, but want to move to hybrid, and there is a 6th grade seat license available, we're happy to move you to that. Otherwise, we kind of need to wait till a quarter break where people might be moving into in person, and then we can move you out to that element. And so, yes, it's a lot easier to move out to hybrid at different times than come back in. And so we'll try to accommodate those things. Just contact myself and Mrs. Ehlers, and we'll talk through that process with you. Somebody asked, how does the schedule work for hybrid students? They wanted to know about check out and check in. Essentially, we would create a schedule for you based on your interest, needs, and availability. And then the student would check in. Let's say they're taking 3rd and 4th bell on A days and B days. They would come at 12:30 or 1 o'clock, depending on when the class started. And they would come and check in at the office, and they would go home at the end of the day. Or let's say they started at the beginning of the day and left right before lunch. They would check out at the office right before lunch. Now, the first couple days, we would want the parent to come in and sign the student in and sign them out until we just get the process going, and everybody knows, everybody in the front desk knows when each child's leaving or each child's arriving, and then the parent can just drop them off or have them arrive on their own. So after the first couple days, the parent wouldn't have to come in anymore. But for the first few days, we would ask the parent to help us manage that process. A couple other questions. Is the building going to be closed at any time for deep cleaning or other similar reasons? And I'd say right now we don't have any specific plans to close the building or close school for cleaning other than the breaks that are already built into the schedule. For example, we have fall break, where the last day of the term is October 14th. And then we have the 15th, 16th, and 17th, as well as the 18th, where there's no school in place. And so our custodial crew will be working extra hard on those days, trying to do some deep cleaning and re-cleaning like we did in the summer. Same thing comes with Thanksgiving on the 25th, 26th, 27th. And then over the holiday break, December 19th to January 4th. And spring break from March 6th to March 14th. There are these windows built into the school year already, where the school will be closed to the public. And so we'll be working hard during those windows to deep clean and do things, but we won't be closing the building otherwise. Now, the big question comes is, what happens if Vista is unlucky enough to have an outbreak of COVID? Would we close school then? And what I would say is, if we begin to get a number of cases, or we get little nodes of cases, we'd be working in conjunction with the local health department to discuss our situation, to contact trace, to figure out how it's spreading within our school, or if it's spreading within our school, if it's just coming in from an outside source. And then we would make decisions accordingly. In a worst case scenario, it's possible we would close the school and move to online for a period of 2 weeks, and then reopen with a partial schedule where, half the alphabet came on Monday and Tuesday, and the other half of the alphabet would come on Thursday and Friday, kind of like the plan that we put out at the start of the school year. But that would be kind of a worst case scenario if we had a true outbreak and we're having a lot of in-school spread. In most cases, even when there are cases at school, it's not student to student spread or classroom to classroom spread. It's people contracting the disorder outside of school and coming to school with the disorder, being identified, and then being asked to go back home. And so there's often not a lot of student to student spread. And if we can prevent student to student spread, we can keep the school open and keep everyone safe that way, and just keep going and educating the way we need to. If there is an outbreak in a specific class, then that class might be canceled or quarantined for a period of time. Or if a teacher contracts it, then that teacher might be quarantined for a period of time. It all depends on the scenario. But we work with the State Board of Health through every situation, and we will continue to communicate out and share information as we go. But that's the information on school closures. Now, I just had one other statement I wanted to share with people, and then if there's nothing coming in through the chat, then we will conclude this Q&A tonight. Those are all the questions that were submitted firsthand. Believe it or not, Vista is almost ready to begin construction. We are coming to the end of September and the beginning of October this week. In October, the general contractor will send out the RFPs for subcontracting bids, those that would be doing the excavation and electric and plumbing and those different things. All throughout October, we will be receiving bids from the subcontractors and be selecting those subcontractors so that by early November, we will have all of our subcontractors in place. The goal at that point then would be in late November, maybe around Thanksgiving or early December, we would do our groundbreaking. Between when we get our subcontractors in place and break ground, we'll post on our website some architectural drawings and some mock-ups of what the building will look like and all the capacities of the building. And so hopefully between December 1 and June 2022, we will be doing construction here on grounds. And then we'll occupy the building in June and July and do a grand opening at the start of school year in 2022. We'll be off and running. There will be some minor construction things that happen before December. We'll move one of the portables here over fall break, and that may cause us to shut down classes for a couple of days in the portable and move some kids around. That may cause a little disruption to traffic on an afternoon or a morning, depending on when we get things done. But this has been about 18 months coming, and we are about ready to take off running. So watch for the future. There was a question that came up in the chat, and I want to take a look at that and just make sure I read that correctly. Will any of the waiting list kids be invited for in-person learning this year if their number comes up? The answer to that is yes. We're trying to manage all of that under the cap for enrollment that the state gives us, which is around 1,000 right now. And so if we have students move out or relocate or change their education system and there are students on the wait list waiting to come in, we would welcome them in. And so we watch that on a weekly basis, and on a monthly basis, we make decisions about inviting them in. Now, we are being a little careful with class size during COVID. We're trying to keep the class size a little bit smaller and keep students spread out. And so we won't do an immediate invite anytime anyone leaves, but we will watch the numbers and the class sizes and try and just kind of judge and gauge who we can invite in and when. We especially look at siblings of people who are already attending and things like that to try and work with family situations. So there'll be some invites as we go throughout the year, but it's all dependent on each grade and each setting. That concludes all the questions that have come in through chat or previous, and then I just shared some information. I want to thank you parents and families for being committed to Vista. It has been a unique year where we've had to do a lot of things on the fly. We've had to change things quickly and try things we've never done before. I feel like most of those things have been successful and they've been really positive. In the event that something isn't working, please contact me and we'll try and work out how best to fix it. And we'll just keep proceeding forward, trying to be the great school that you need us to be for your children and for your family. Thanks for tuning in tonight.